Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are undertaking a truly practical mission. Forget the historical epics for a moment, okay? We are getting down to brass tacks and, well, cracking open the internal rule book of a real functioning business, Tank's Pizza. Our sources today are basically the company's DNA. We've got the employee handbook overview and the standard operating procedures manual summary. And our goal for you, the listener, is to essentially speed read the corporate mind here. We're going to pull out the key nuggets to understand, the terms of employment, what they expect behavior-wise, and crucially, the actual structure of how Tanks operates day to day.
Yeah, and this is really a deep dive into structure, which I think is incredibly valuable. These documents, they aren't just boilerplate, right? They are the explicit understanding between the worker and the company. They lay out the foundational expectations right from the start, shows you where the lines are drawn, for personal conduct versus just doing the job. You could almost think of them as the company's maybe legal protector and its execution engine.
Oh, I like that. Framing the protector versus the engine. That's good. We're
Huh.
decoding the fundamental relationship without having to read a massive legal text. Okay, let's unpack this blueprint of a pizza company then. Let's kick off with that legal protector, the Tank's Pizza Employee Handbook. This seems to be the main document defining that formal relationship. It's like the core governance doc for anyone working there.
Exactly. And what's interesting, I think, is how deliberate they are about defining the scope of this handbook. Its stated purpose, right in the overview, is to clarify the general terms of employment, employee rights, and the definite standards of conduct. It sets that behavioral baseline, makes it really clear what's acceptable and what's not.
So it's not just a list of rules, but more like a documented agreement on rights and responsibilities. Okay, but for us to digest this quickly, we kind of need a map. How is it structured? What are the main sections?
Well, the structure seems designed for clarity, which is definitely helpful for us.
Hmm.
It's organized into three pretty distinct sections, like pillars, that establish the employment relationship. So, first pillar, introduction and purpose. That's the starting point, basically explaining why the handbook exists and that the employee is agreeing to these terms. Simple enough. Second section is general employment and compensation. This is the administrative heart of it, how you get paid, time off, that kind of thing. And then the third section covers rights, policies, and standards of conduct. This is key.
Right, that structural split is pretty telling, isn't it? It means they consciously separated, like, the how we pay you stuff from the how we expect you to behave stuff. Let's just pause on that second pillar for a general employment and compensation. What specific details does that section give us about, the day-to-day realities of working at Tanks?
Well, digging into that section, it definitely sheds light on scheduling and pay. For instance, the overview mentions specific rules for managing shift swaps. Apparently, you need written manager approval, like 48 hours in advance, that little detail. It suggests that while they might allow some flexibility, the organization really values managerial oversight and, well, stability.
That's a good catch. It shows a preference for system control, maybe over complete employee freedom there. What about the compensation itself? Does it say anything specific about, say, how often people get paid or the usual at-will employment statement?
Oh, absolutely. The overview confirms employment is at will. That's pretty standard in many places, but it's crucial for anyone working there to note. It defines the terms of separation right up front. It also lays out the biweekly payroll schedule. And, maybe most interestingly, it details a specific tiered structure for earning paid time off, or PTO, based on how long you've worked there. That level of detail suggests they really want financial expectations to be crystal clear. No ambiguity.
Okay, moving to that third, really important pillar, rights, policies, and standards of conduct. This sounds like where the company culture really gets defined on paper. What are some concrete examples of conduct expectations mentioned in the sources?
Yeah, this section goes beyond just saying be nice. It covers tangible things like uniform standards, specific details about what shoes are okay, and you have to wear the Tanks branded hat. Seems straightforward. But it also gets into something they actually call marinara integrity.
Marinara integrity. Okay, that sounds like a fascinating bit of internal lingo. What's that about?
It is, isn't it? It's their specific term for how employees need to handle food waste and prevent cross-contamination. So basically, groups cleanliness and food safety right under the banner of behavioral expectations. And what's more, safety policies, things like mandatory use of cut-resistant gloves when chopping, specific ways to handle the pizza oven they're embedded right here in the conduct section, not in the operations manual.
Wait, hold on. That's a really key structural choice, right? Why would critical safety procedures, which are inherently about doing physical tasks, be grouped with behavioral standards in the handbook? Why not in the SOP manual with other procedures?
That's a great question. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, it likely elevates the perceived importance. By putting safety procedures under standards of conduct, rather than just operational procedure, Tanks is signaling something. Failing to use those gloves or follow oven safety rules isn't just a process mistake. It's framed as a failure of professional conduct. And that could carry, stronger disciplinary weight. It basically elevates safety to a core employment standard.
Wow, okay. That's a massive insight right there. It really tells you where their internal compliance focus lies. Safety isn't just process, it's conduct.
All right, now that we've got a handle on the employment governance, let's shift gears. From the legal protector to the execution engine. We're moving to the standard operating procedures, or SOP manual summary. This is where the actual pizza gets made, right? Precisely. If the handbook defines who you are as a responsible employee, the SOP manual defines what you do and, critically, how you do it. The main goal of this manual is pretty straightforward. Ensure every key task, no matter who's doing it, is executed the exact same way every single time. Standardization.
Yeah, that provides that strong foundation for execution. Makes sense. In
Uh,
a high-volume place like a pizza restaurant, ambiguity is just bad for business.
yeah,
You can't afford someone deciding to, freestyle the dough recipe during the Friday night dinner rush.
exactly right. The goal is operational consistency, predictability. The SOP manual achieves this by detailing pretty much every repeatable task, and the source material we have highlights two really foundational parts of the Tank's business that are heavily standardized. Food preparation, obviously, and customer interaction.
Okay, let's start with food prep. What are some of the specific standardization points mentioned for the actual pizza-making process itself?
Well, the manual seems laser-focused on consistency metrics. We see specific procedures defining how to handle the dough, everything from the temperature of the water used in the mix to the exact kneading time. And maybe more critically, it mandates specific measured portion control for toppings, like there's a requirement to use a specific size ladle for the sauce, and a mandated maximum weight 3 ounces for pepperoni on a large pizza.
3 ounces of pepperoni. That's the kind of detail that sticks with you, huh? And that exact measurement ensures the pizza tastes the same, looks the same, whether you make it or I make it. Guarantees that brand consistency Tanks needs.
Absolutely. That predictability is the value proposition of having an SOP like this. Now, shifting to that second pillar of execution, customer interaction. How does Tanks try to standardize something as, dynamic as talking to a customer?
Good question. The sources suggest the standardization here is really about process and tone, specifically targeting how orders are taken and how complaints are handled. They apparently standardize the greeting. There's a mandated 3-point introduction. It has to include the employee's name, the official Tanks welcome, and mentioning a current promotional offer every time.
Interesting. And what's really fascinating here is the protocol for handling problems, specifically customer complaints. The manual doesn't seem to allow for just immediate, off-the-cuff solutions by the employee. It actually details a specific 4-step de-escalation protocol that must be followed for any unresolved issue, and it culminates in a mandatory supervisor handover if the problem isn't fixed by step 3.
Ah, okay. So the SOP dictates not just what to say initially, but also when to stop trying to fix it yourself and escalate. That ensures every complaint, whether it's about a cold slice or a late delivery, gets managed through the same controlled, measured process. It manages customer expectations, I suppose, but it also protects the employee from having to deal with a really angry customer all alone.
So, okay, if we pull back and look at the whole picture here, these two documents, the handbook and the SOP manual, they successfully define two pretty distinct but definitely related spheres of life at Tank's Pizza.
Exactly. You got the handbook, the legal protector, as we call it, setting the high-level governance. That's your pay, your rights, and those behavioral rules like marinara integrity and mandatory safety conduct. Then you have the SOP manual, the execution engine, which focuses purely on consistent workflow, defining that 3-ounce pepperoni limit and the 4-step complaint process. Right. And understanding the division between these documents, that's really the key takeaway for you, the listener. If you need to know about, say, a dress code rule or how PTO works, you look in the handbook. If you need to know the exact temperature for the dough mixer or the script for greeting customers, you go to the SOP manual. It's about knowing where to look.
And this structural analysis, it kind of reveals where potential conflicts might pop up, doesn't it? Remember how we noted safety procedures are defined as conduct in the handbook? That structure inherently gives them priority over the SOP, which might otherwise just focus on speed and pure process.
Yeah, that structural understanding is way more powerful than just reading a list of rules. It actually shows the company's internal hierarchy of values, what they prioritize. Which brings us neatly to our final thought for you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. We've seen the employee handbook outlines safety and conduct as these non negotiable standards. And the SOP manual details how to execute tasks, often, with an eye towards speed and efficiency. So here's the question. When the kitchen is absolutely slammed Friday night rush and following a safety procedure strictly, like maybe fully sanitizing a cutting board between every single task, might slow down pizza production. Which document really holds sway in that moment? Does the handbook standard of conduct dictate the action, even if it's slower? Or does the SOP's implied need for efficiency tend to win out in practice? That tension between stated safety policy and practical execution speed, that's something definitely worth thinking about in almost any operational environment.